one of the names that you might be hearing in terms of the offensive line for the next year or two, who could end up being one of the depth pieces on this line, or maybe if he develops enough and he shows the coaching staff enough, he could end up as a possible offensive guard for this New York Giants team going forward. And that, of course, is the offensive lineman prospect out of Nigeria, who was found by New York Giants Ring of Honor and legendary defensive end Osi Umenyiora during the International Pathway Program. And that, of course, is Roy Mbaeteka, the 6'9", 320-pound offensive lineman who the New York Giants brought in as a free agent. And he's going to see if he can win a possible roster spot on the back end of this roster. But if he doesn't, he's a guy that will most likely stick on the roster going into this season in terms of the practice squad. So we don't expect a guy like Roy Mbaeteka to go anywhere. I think he's going to still be involved with the New York Giants organization. They're going to try to develop this kid on the practice squad, try to get the most out of his 6'9", 320-pound raw frame, try to develop his skills in terms of his hand placement, his foot placement, how he moves, and how he is able to improve his overall technique as an offensive tackle, or possibly even if they want to move into an offensive guard, though it might be difficult for a 6'9", 320-pound offensive tackle to learn how to play offensive guard. But if he's able to develop as much as we think he could, who knows? Maybe you see a kid like Roy Mbaeteka as part of that. But I think what the Giants are hoping, and maybe this kid could do, because of the fact that Osi Umenyiora heavily scouted this guy during the program, and he was one of his hand-picked players out of Nigeria during the International Pathway Program, that maybe he really sees some type of really big upside in talent in Mbaeteka, and hopefully the coaching staff, including Bobby Johnson, can get the most out of this kid. I don't expect him to make the roster. I think, if anything, he's going to be one of these guys that's going to be a depth player, if he's able to develop into the player we hope for. But just the fact of the type of contract that he signed when he was brought in by the New York Giants, he signed a 3-year, $2.56 million deal, but that's not where it really ensures he's going to be part of the practice squad going forward. The thing is, he has a guarantee of $207,000 on his 2022 salary. That pretty much means that the Giants are going to plan on carrying him over on the practice squad going forward, and they really think that this kid, with the type of coaching staff that they have, that they can try to get the most out of this kid going forward, and hopefully he can, because who knows what the New York Giants are going to have in terms of depth on the offensive line going into next season, because we don't know if Matt Parrott is going to be here. You don't think Will Holden or Eric Smith are going to be the type of guys you're looking for, and it all depends on who we find during when the cut-down periods happen at the end of this year. Nobody really expects Roy Mbaeteka to be an absolute contributor for this team going into this year. He's just not ready. He's a raw prospect. He's actually a former basketball player in Nigeria. So you have to see this kid just get the type of development that he needs, because he's got excellent size. He's a big guy, but he needs a lot of work in terms of his technique and just learning the NFL game going forward, because this is not a guy you want to throw out there and you want to just try to see what he can do without getting the proper experience that he needs for a raw prospect who's just really learning how to play the offensive tackle position and just the offensive line position in general as a rookie going forward. So he's still young enough, and hopefully Bobby Johnson and this offensive line coaching staff can develop this kid enough where maybe you talk about a Roy Mbaeteka as part of the New York Giants offensive line rotation going forward, because you know what? It'd be a nice thing to do if maybe he could develop into a swing tackle. So if anything happens, God forbid, to Andrew Thomas or Evan Neal, you have a guy like Roy Mbaeteka that can come in and be a type of player that you wouldn't miss way too much of a beat. I mean, I'm not saying this kid is going to be, the next great left tackle or right tackle. If anything, you just hope that this kid can develop enough. He's got good size. The only thing you have to worry about, though, is he's very tall. And usually when you have an offensive tackle that's that big, it's sometimes, he has trouble when it comes to smaller defensive ends that can just go around him real quickly, because he doesn't have the right hand placement, because he has to bend down trying to contain some of these defensive ends or defensive tackles. So it might be a little bit difficult for a larger offensive tackle to be able to do that. but that's why I could possibly see him maybe moving to offensive guard if they think that that might be his best position going forward as a reserve guy. I think his upside pretty much is a guy that I think is going to be a reserve offensive tackle or offensive guard. I don't expect him to be a starter at all. I don't expect a whole lot from him, but if you can get this kid, like I mentioned earlier in the video, and I apologize if I'm being redundant, if you can get this kid to develop enough as an offensive tackle for the New York Giants, and you'll be able to plug him in a necessary time, if God forbid something happens to your starters, maybe you won't have that big of a drop-off when this kid is able to go out there and play. So I just hope that we can see a good development from him. He apparently is learning the NFL game pretty well, but he's still got a long way to go in terms of just learning how to be a good offensive tackle in the league. But that's up to the coaching staff, and that's also up to Mbaeteka to try to put in the work necessary and learn more about how being an offensive tackle in the NFL. And hopefully we'll be able to see this kid do that, because we all want to see an offensive tackle with the upside and the height and the length and the size of an Mbaeteka be able to be a type of player that we can really, count on as a key depth piece on this offensive line. And the fact that Osi Umenyiora specifically went out there, scouted this kid, and pretty much vouched to the Giants that they need to sign this kid coming in, that obviously means he really believes this kid does have a pretty decent skill set. He's got a good upside, and that maybe the New York Giants might have found themselves an undrafted gem in terms of an offensive lineman. But that's a wait-and-see process that we'll have to see what happens going forward. But hopefully we might have another good depth offensive lineman going forward. So that's just my little video I wanted to make on Roy Mbaeteka, the offensive tackle that the New York Giants signed in April of this offseason. I know it's been a while since I talked about this, but I just wanted to bring this kid up because I think the fact that Osi Umenyiora really went hard in scouting this kid and recommended that the Giants sign him because of the upside he could have as a depth or even a possible starter as an offensive guard might show that maybe we have ourselves a gem or a diamond in the rough in terms of an offensive lineman. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe I'm overblowing it right now. Maybe I'm getting a little bit over the top myself. We just don't really know. But this is up to Bobby Johnson. This is up to the offensive line coach. This is up to Roy Mbaeteka himself, that these guys put in the work, develop as much as they can, and see if this kid could really be a good depth piece. Because you never can have enough depth when it comes to the offensive line. So thank you very much, everybody. If you like this video, please hit the like button below. Subscribe if you haven't already to NYG Jeffy T 3285 for more breaking news updates and chatter surrounding the New York Giants, New York Mets, Brooklyn Nets, WWE Wrestling, as well as some food for thought. Turn on the bell for the notifications on when the next video or short drop surrounding the New York Giants. And leave your comments below on if you've scouted this kid, if you've heard about Roy Mbaeteka, the offensive tackle from Nigeria that the New York Giants signed earlier this year, and if you think he could possibly be a player that the New York Giants could see as a possible depth piece, or who knows, maybe if his upside is much larger than we think, could be a potential starter at one of the offensive guard positions for the New York Giants going forward. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope everybody has a great rest of your Friday morning / afternoon. Take it easy, and let's go New York Football Giants.